We're ready to roll. Oh man, I should get rid of my soda. I don't want to advertise for Coke unless they're going to sponsor me.
We're gonna stream live, okay? At the same time.
Let's do it.
Okay?
I love it.
I'll tell you, we'll be on the air in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yes. I love it. Megan, we're designed for like just get
Dang
it done,
I'm
right?
sorry, my legs. Oh, that's in yours. I don't
This is Sherm's. This is the Crazy Asian vlog.
I'm like halfway off the camera, so it's good.
So someone nicely posted. It's someone that follows me. Does real estate in Australia,
Oh, I saw that.
and I'm like,
So this is
such a nice compliment,
Yeah,
man.
Good Morning America, and then
Some nice.
Nightline.
I just don't like news because then I have to report on whatever's happening out there.
Yeah.
I like to report about my life, which is always important. That's what people want to know.
Okay, so this, where should I put this mic? Should I like put it right in front of me? Should I put it here?
So no, sometimes what they, yeah, just keep it to the side. So can you see yourself on the camera? You don't want it to, because that's your camera, right?
Oh, you don't want to like cover my face.
You don't want it to cover your face.
Gotcha.
So, and mine's like right here. So, you know, you and I can talk to each other, but then he said, you'll want to talk to the audience. So at some point you take off your eye contact from the person you're talking to and then go here and then come back. Right, so like let's say I ask you a question.
I'm just scared that if I turn to you,
Yeah.
then it's like audio goes muffled.
So do it like. So I know it seemed like it was more to the right yesterday. Yeah.
Here?
And so.
But I feel like when I turn, you're not gonna be able to hear.
You can pull it in a little bit, but then maybe turn it or something. So that way, yeah. So it's more like that. So you'll be like, I'll be like, hey, so tell me about what's going down in your life, and then you'll be like, sure, here's how it goes. And then you'll be like, boom, camera. This is what I'm doing. Da, 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 da. And then kind of your last couple sentences, and that's what's happening. And then,
Are you gonna open it?
sure, I'll just say this is the.
Asian Sensation Show, not
Yeah.
the Crazy Asian.
This is the Asian Sensation Show. It's hard not to say crazy in front of Asian because I say
You've said it for the
so
last, like-
often.
You said it for the. Well, what if you say the Asian? Because we technically are the Asian
Yes.
sensations.
Yeah. So it's funny in Susan's show, it has me like Sherman, and then the title is The Crazy
Asian.
I thought that's pretty clever. And then
I was laughing because I heard you talking to Devin, and you're like, and you could be Devin. Devin gets it done.
Yeah, I was like, dynamic Devin. I was like, I don't know. I can't think of something creative right now.
And I was like, I'm ready for the same thing. And I'm like, and this is Megan.
Magnificent Megan.
I know, that reminds me of like in school when they'd be like, choose adjectives that describe you, or like that start with the first letter of your name. And I'd be like, magnificent, marvelous.
Mm-hmm. How about just Megan?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because that's what we think.
Because everything else just sounds super vain, and like, I'm a vain person, but
Right.
like, I'm not trying to be like, I'm marvelous.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's like the way that I think it's like I'm Sherman. Like that is the compliment.
Yeah. Oh, so in my office, in my drawers, we're gonna have to go through all that stuff. Well, like, I'm just gonna tell you what's in there.
What's your last official day? Is it Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Okay.
But Matt was like, and he's like, so we're gonna go to lunch on Monday, and then, then on Tuesday, he's like, if you could just, wrap up stuff with Sherman, make sure all the ducks are in a row. He's like, and then Wednesday, I just assumed that that's gonna be you packing, and I was like, probably, because I'm leaving at
Yeah, you're leaving at noon.
noon.
Okay. To go to Ohio.
Yeah. I'm gonna be there by like 2. Let's go to Ohio.
Pretty excited.
I'll tell Mel all the good stuff of Mo Nations.
Monations. All right.
We're ready.
We will be ready.
Okay.
Just count us down.
Facebook Live, nowmediaradio.com, and YouTube. All that. Okay?
Cool.
We're ready. We're ready for the big time. At least that's what our ego says. That's the funny thing about it.
Yeah. In reality, we're like, we're okay.
I'm average, maybe above.
I really like that I'm in this little of a corner, because then I can be like,
Yeah.
You're like on the outside.
Those
like,
are the dance moves. I'm like coming in to visit.
Yeah, you are. You are coming in to visit
So if
me.
the camera's angled right, it's like, you're not even there.
That is Jaden's move. He was doing that.
Yeah, he was.
That's like all kids' moves. They're like, I know I can move my arms, and my torso will move in a different direction.
Let's do it together.
That's like the beginning move of a child. And jumping.
Yeah, he jumps like a machine. So that's
Because they learn.
he was super psyched to like eat broccoli last night. He was eating broccoli. I was like, yes, eat the broccoli. And he's like, broccoli? And then he would grab broccoli and be like eating it, and then be like, and then everyone would be like clap for him, and then he just was super psyched. He now likes broccoli.
Good, that's good.
That's all it takes.
It's like when he thought it was so funny to point out all the meats to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd say, oh, chicken. And he would just laugh.
He loves it. He likes people. He's a total.
He totally gets that from you.
people. Yeah. Hope he doesn't get anything bad from me.
Such as, is this like an ad? Is this what this is for?
No, it's for, like so people if they have like their cell phone or something, they can put it in there or a book.
To like read?
Like so the book can fit like right here, you know. It's like Susan had her book here, and so she held it like right here, so it's kind of towards the
Why
camera.
would you have your cell phone there?
But like for you, if let's say you needed to read something,
Oh.
you can have it towards you. You can take it down
That was
if you
just
want.
an ad.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, but you can take it down if you want. There's more than enough amount of media going on here, so.
It's still on
I
the
think it's just good to, you know, have things clean.
Do they have Wawa?
They do, but it's another room. You can get some water later.
Water.
What we do need is a timer. You know, because sometimes I like to know like how much longer we got.
Do you have a timer?
It probably does have some kind of function. No, it doesn't
How do you
have.
not know?
So I think I'll button it, even though you're not meant to when you sit down, just because it looks better in the camera
Yeah.
for this. Unless, because if I do this, then it's like, whoop, hello there. What's happening below that belt, shame?
Totally good. Are we recording? We've been recording.
We're recording this thing because this is just fun.
No,
This is
I
like
know.
blooper reel, man. We'll just shove that stuff in there and like, bam. Then it's like real life stuff, you know? Where it's like, yeah, here's Megan dancing to Jake. So it'll go. These commercial midnights. I like it. It's very exciting.
I washed my hair today.
So did I. All right. Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Asian Sensation Show. I'm Megan.
And this is Sherm, the crazy Asian.
And so, if you know a little bit about us, we have a podcast that we've been doing for a while, but we've taken a month hiatus just because I've been super busy. So that's what we're going to chit chat about today to our listeners that know about our show and you out there who will now be a new listener.
And what's very exciting, Megan, is here we are in this new space of Now Media, right? So
Yes.
we took our podcast from our little cell phones into this studio. So we are super excited, everybody,
Yes, we are
to
growing.
be sharing with you live here in the great city of Houston.
Yes.
And so what we're going to first talk about, Megan, is all about you.
Wonderful.
Megan's favorite topic, by the way, is
myself.
Is herself.
sometimes, not all the time.
So let's tell people kind of what you've been up to, because remember this kind of falls aligned with a couple months ago you had a lot of these epiphanies of what you wanted to do and talking about consulting, and here lo and behold something falls upon your lap, so to speak.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because we actually today at the book club talked about The Secret, which is all about manifestations and believing in the power of yourself and kind of the ideas and the thoughts that you have. If you really kind of put them out into the world, it'll come upon you. And so that's actually what we talked about a couple episodes ago. Was I think the title of the podcast was like Megan's Epiphanies or something. I don't remember what I named it, but it was all about how I was just having like all of these like just realizations and all these signs about how I think it was a time to make a change in my life, and thought about what's my next step? Am I going to get into consulting and whatnot? And so, surprise, I did.
Mhm.
So I officially accepted a position as a recruitment consultant for a firm, and it gives me a little bit more exposure to a different industry and just more of that consulting realm of working with employers and kind of being that expert that they're looking for, which is what really excites me. So that's really what has changed since then, is that essentially all my manifestations that I had came true. So.
And what's really interesting is I remember after the first interview, you weren't very impressed, right? Like you weren't like, oh my gosh, head over heels, because you were happy at what was currently
Yeah.
going on. But you kind of knew that there was something that maybe needed to make a change.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about kind of what your thoughts were after, and then how it changed as you went along that interview process?
Yeah, so when I first walked away from the interview, I guess the reason why, because I feel like for all the interviews that I've done in the last 5 years, so I've been with the same company for 5 years, but obviously, always kept my options open because you just never know.
Mhm.
The next opportunity might come. And I just always felt that all the interviews that I used to go into, it was always selling. They were always selling me on what the opportunity was and oh, you're so great and all of this stuff. But then, you turn right back around and you wouldn't get a call back. Or, you would be like, why didn't they pick me? Why wasn't I offered a position? So this interview, I actually was left with a kind of homework assignment or a reflection piece about, how do you feel about sales? Do you really think you want to get into sales, the sales side of recruiting, or just stay in recruiting? You really need to think about that, because that's a huge part of consulting, is selling services, selling what you have to offer, your expertise, why they should choose you. And so I walked away from it and I was like, I don't know, did that person like me or not? Everybody else seemed to like me. But then I went back for my second interview, had no clue of what was going to happen. And just going through that interview, it was just right to me.
Mhm.
It just felt right. And so they actually left me in the room by myself for 5 minutes, and I pulled out my phone and I texted my friend and I said, I want to work here.
Mhm.
And I put my phone away and then finished up with the interview. Ended up, I walked away with a verbal offer, got the offer letter that same day. And that, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that was the first time of the last 5 years that I've interviewed at places that I really felt like this is where I want to be.
Mhm.
It just felt right. It aligned in terms of career growth. It aligned with just my personal goals for myself, compensation wise, all of that. And yeah, so, it really kind of came full circle, because I used to always think am I supposed to be at this place for the next 5 years? I've been at one place for 5 years. And why did all these other places not want me? But I think it's a combination of two. It was mirroring that. Now that I think about it, I probably wasn't giving off in these other interviews that I was super excited.
Mhm.
But for the first time, I feel like with this one, I really gave off that energy, because subconsciously, even though I was like, oh, I'm going to put on my best face, because that's what interviewing is, subconsciously it just kind of comes out, the
Yeah.
body language, all of that. And so all the cards fell in the right place, and here we are.
So what's interesting in this is that you weren't actively looking
Yeah.
for employment. So a friend referred you to it. So you were a passive.
Yeah, I
Candidate.
was super passive. So my friend started working there about 3-4 months before me. I haven't started officially yet. But she was working there and told me about it. She's like, I think you would really like this, because I've had the experience. She didn't. And she was like, I really think you'd really like it here. And then from there, they actually reached out to me. So in that office, there's separate teams. Everybody works in different regions, but they're all in the same place. It's an open floor plan. And so, she would be working on the opposite side of the office than I would be. But a different team had reached out to me, and it just kind of worked out.
And so what's interesting, sometimes you and I talk about this in the recruiting process, right? When you're interviewing, is to kick the can down the road, right?
Yeah.
And so it's this whole idea that you want to be able to see how far you can go in that interview process and see ultimately who they are, right? Because a lot of times you can fake to them, hey, I'm a good person, I'm a good candidate, and at the same time they can kind of fake you and say, hey, we're a great company, we've got great culture. But the more that you get to know them, are they really that kind of personality? Are they really that kind of company culture that's going to fit with you? And that's really what was kind of cool for you, even though you weren't like, oh, I don't know if that's the right fit. Hey, we're working so well together. But then the second time you're like, okay, now all the cards on the table,
Yeah.
this now looks like a really good offer. Plus you add on top of it where you want to go in the future.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. Like you wanted that opportunity to do consulting.
Yeah.
When you needed that skill set, you had to move where you currently are, right? Unfortunately, where you currently are right now, you are going to get that skill set
Yeah.
down the road.
Exactly. And then that goes back to like manifestation, right? So then we're like really big on manifestation, Sherman and I. Like we always talk about writing down your goals, knowing what your goals are, putting it out there, having big goals, having small goals, having like impossible goals, because you just never know. And so I was going back through this notebook that I just do a lot of stuff with, like business wise, through my network marketing, through what I'm game planning for myself and whatnot. It's just a running little notebook that I have. And now that I think about it, I actually was going through it and there was a page where I wrote down everything that I wanted to do if I was going to get into consulting. And consulting for me, at the end of the day, or like the bigger picture, is I want to really help consult people or help people open their own businesses. So on the marketing side, so I think a lot of people aren't good at the strategy. They have a lot of ideas, but they don't know about the execution. And so that's what I really want to do. And I think that the exposure that I have to the consulting will really help me with that. Will this be the role that I have for the next 5 years? I don't know. But you know, I think sometimes we stop ourselves from like getting into roles because we're like, well, I'm going to be here for I need to think long term. But sometimes places are only meant for a year, 6 months, just to get the exposure.
Right, and that's where I think sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot by going, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be here forever.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, you and I might not know what we're going to have for dinner tonight or dinner tomorrow. How can we plan what our career looks like
Exactly.
5 years from now when we work for a company that has tens of thousands of employees or hundreds of employees? They're trying to make decisions not only for themselves, but all these other employees. It's too hard to sometimes project out where we want to be. It's a lot easier, like you did, write a list down of all the things that you want to be doing and get good at, have some experience in, and then all of a sudden you can find those different opportunities, and they'll start checking off those boxes. But if you never take that time to look at what you want to be doing, you end up never knowing what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So do you want to bring up, I feel like you should bring up the talk on negotiation.
Yes, okay.
Because you helped me with that.
So this was super awesome. So Megan got a great offer, and she's like, hey, I should take it. And I was like, well, just so you know, from an employer's perspective, I'm always going to pay you a little bit, and I'm going to leave a little more available, right? So in a sense, each role has a bandwidth. And so in that band of low and high, I'm typically going to offer you maybe a little, if you told me what you make, I'm gonna make it a little bit more than what you're currently making, but I know I can go a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And so they already want you in this process. And so if you feel that you can have that kind of conversation, you can say, based on my experience, based on what I can bring to the table, I was hoping for a little bit higher of a compensation package.
Yep.
And then let them come to the table. Now, more likely than not, they're going to ask you, well, what do you think? What would you like? And so you have to know a range. Always give a range. Don't give it one number, and whatever range you give them, the lowest number should be the number that you want. So, if let's say they're offering you $80,000, you say, well, I was hoping based on my experience, my compensation, my skill set, my network, that I'd be somewhere close to around 88 to 98,000. And then all of a sudden it gives them an opportunity to say, you know what we gave you was the best offer available, Megan. Or they can come back and say, you know what, let me talk it over with the team. We can come to 87.5. That's as high as we can come.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna piss and moan over $500, which is basically $40 a month. We're gonna be okay. Let's take that deal.
Yeah. And so that's essentially the advice that you gave me. And then so I went back and kind of I pretty much just told them like, hey, you know, I kind of went over the compensation package and wiggle room. Wanted to discuss a little bit about the wiggle room. What can we wiggle out? You know, what can we do with that? And so they called me back and said, you know, well, we can go with X amount, and that's kind of the cap, just because you get bonuses and whatnot. And what they then gave me was actually the minimum of what I was looking for, so it worked out.
Yeah.
So
And let me ask, were they offended or put off by the request?
no, actually, and that's what I was scared of. Was I was scared, but you made a good point of, at this point they've already offered it to me, they want me.
Mhm.
And so, you know, when they called, they were like, hey, you know, to discuss kind of what you had asked about the wiggle room, you know, this is what we can go with. But they just kind of asked me, you know, like, well, what were you looking for? But also they asked me a little bit of like, well, why? And I told them, you know, just based off of my experience and where I was coming from, and what I bring to the table, I feel that I deserve a little bit more to make it the move worth it. And I think that's the biggest part, is wording it in that way of, you know, when I lay out all of the options and what's on the table, and making this move, because it is a big move to move from somewhere you've been for 5 years, to go to a new employer. What's going to be the treat, I guess, that I'm running after, or the bone that's going to get me to hop over the fence.
Yeah. And one of those things when it comes to just that language, right? So you and I kind of role played it out on what to say. So definitely some landmine words to stay away from would be like, I expect to get, or like I deserve, right? Like expect and deserve, you're not hired yet. You haven't proven anything. And so those can be words that to definitely avoid. And I love the word wiggle room. I think you're the one that came up with that. So that really gives just, hey, is there a little flexibility in that, right? Yeah. And the big thing that is that you're leaving your current employer with money on the table, right? So you have a lot going on that you're going to get bonused on had you stay there.
Yes.
So that's definitely something, I don't think we even brought that up as a conversation, but it's definitely something that you can bring up. If let's say, you know, you have a quarterly bonus coming up, and in your negotiation you can say, well, based on what's currently happening in my role, I'm about to get a bonus, and you can say a number, or you can just say that's part of my overall compensation, and that's what I would want to bump.
Yeah.
And remember, when it comes to total compensation, it doesn't have to just be straight cash. It could be more bonus, more commission, more vacation time, more benefits. Hey, well, we'll cover your life insurance, your disability. We'll put well, you can't discriminate on 401k, but they can maybe compensate you more on your health insurance or something. And so there's different things that employers can do to be flexible. If they can't give you the cold hard cash, they might be able to give you the incentive if you do your job.
Yeah, exactly.
And so was there, you know, in regards to this, I know one of the toughest things was the conversation about leaving. So do you want to talk about that? Just because I think it's one of the hardest things, right? Because 5 years, great history, great employer, right? So you're not leaving in a bad note, right? The company culture isn't suppressing you. You're not feeling like you basically have outgrown the current cocoon, and now you're a butterfly ready to fly.
So the conversation, I will say, went a little bit different than I thought it was going to, not because of the response that I got, but it was because of me. So oddly enough, I cried more than I expected. I literally sat down and started crying. But I think it's because, for me, the culture of the company is it's a very family feel. It's very family oriented, one big team, all of that. Everybody's invested. You know, it's not just, you know, we're just coworkers. It's, you know, we're going to lunch with the family, and we're, you know, asking about the kids and whatnot. So there's that tight knit feel, and so I didn't think that, I thought I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. I'm gonna be so prepared for this, whatever. I'm not an emotional person, and then I just cried. But you know, obviously, I'm not telling you like to cry when you put your 2 weeks notice. And honestly, like for me, I'm not an emotional. Like I don't like crying in front of people, and the way that my emotions work is like once I get it out, it's done. Like I don't want to revisit it. And so crying in front of somebody, like in my mind, I'm that like crying is weakness and weakness is lame. And so I was just like, I wish I wouldn't have cried. But you know, the one thing that I did like that my boss said was, you know, well, I kind of appreciate that you're crying because it shows that you actually cared. You know, that because I went in with it saying, you know, it was a hard decision for me. And I'm like, yeah, it was a totally hard decision, but I'm out. You know, then it's really like, did you really care? You know, and all of that. And so I am obviously working my 2 weeks out. There's been some instances where people aren't working their 2 weeks out, but they'll get paid, or maybe that's your final day. It's all about the relationship, I think, with your current employer. And so, you know, I think that for me, what I kind of like is that I'm walking away with a lot of good. Like I'm not just leaving high and dry. So I'm like preparing my exit. And then also leaving on like a high note from a recruit perspective. We have a lot of people that are coming on board. So you can't necessarily, it's like leaving a legacy, right? You can't say that you're walking away with not having made an impact. And so I know for myself that I did. And everybody keeps saying that they have big shoes to fill. And so those are their words, not mine. But you do have big shoes to fill.
And so that's a really, really good point, though, that when it comes to leaving, is that people have heard that cliche phrase, don't burn any bridges.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. So no matter how awesome your 5 years were, if you left being like packing up your box and saying, hey, peace out, I got another job, 2 weeks in, and then you just slough it, right? Then all that we remember is those 2 weeks that you did garbage work, right?
Yeah.
So it literally taints everything. And so that's the beauty really of that, you know, you're coming into work, you're working hard, you're doing things, you're really putting a lot of closure on all those things that you've been working on, which really leaves a lot of great credibility on the table. And then when you go to the next place and beyond, now you can go back to a reference.
Yeah.
Right? So too often people, they leave like a ghost in the night, right? They're just in one day, out the other. They already got their box in their hand. They're like, see ya, boss, I'm out.
Yeah.
And it definitely leaves a very sour taste in the mouth for the people that are left there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, I say this all the time, but I say it in a joking way. I say like, what are they gonna do, fire me? So I say that as a joke, but it's just like for me and like how I work and my work ethic, like I couldn't really just sit there and not do anything. Like I really couldn't just like roll in at 10 a.m., leave at 2 p.m., like BS my way through everything. Like I just couldn't do it. That's just not how I'm wired. Because obviously I'm a very ambitious person, and that's why I have so many side hustles, and I'm always thinking about what's next, and I have that entrepreneurial mindset. And so, you know, you can't necessarily go, I mean, yeah, if it was really a terrible situation that you were in, then I mean, good riddance, like do what you want. But in reality, you don't want to burn those bridges because every employer is going to ask you for a reference. And so I've had my former boss actually be a reference for me when I've applied at other positions. Not that I took them, or was offered, but you know, just to be able to have that kind of rapport is the biggest thing. Because I even think about that with like our interns. You know, if there's an intern that just like left a bad taste in my mouth, and you know they're late, they're sleeping, whatever it is, like I'm not going to do a reference letter for you. But for the intern that did do a good job, I'll take the time to write a reference letter. And if they call me to verify your employment, I'm going to verify it.
Yeah. And then that's something that I think is so powerful as you start building out your career, to be able to make sure that you aren't burning those bridges, that you are leaving those relationships good and healthy and strong, and just positive, leaving on that good positive note. So this is very exciting times for Megan to be moved to that next level of expertise.
Yeah, but luckily, so I did get asked the question the other day. Actually, I think it was today, and they were like, so are you and Sherman still gonna record? And so that's the great thing, I think, about our relationship is that we're friends. So even though I'm leaving our mutual employer, doesn't mean that the relationship ends there, you know, and that the podcast suffers or anything like that. But we took a month hiatus, and that was just mostly because I was busy doing a lot of big changes,
Yep.
interviewing, kind of laying out what the next steps were, all of that.
Going to Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah, I'm going to Puerto Rico, yeah. I went to Puerto Rico and I went to Atlanta, traveling. So yeah, I mean, we're still gonna be here, and that's like the one great thing that I will say is, it's kind of refreshing knowing that now that I've like actually made the decision to leave, how much positive feedback I've gotten from people. People that I didn't think were gonna even like respond to emails that I had put out, or respond to, an announcement or anything have, and it's been a positive. Cause I think sometimes people fear that when they're leaving, they're gonna be like chastised for making the decision to leave. But I think when you come from a good place of explaining why you're leaving, because one of our coworkers was like, was this an April Fool's joke? Like, I don't understand why you're leaving. And when I explained it to him and said why, he's like, well, when you explain it like that, that's great that you're leaving, because you're coming from a place of, you're not like, oh, I just hate this place, I'm leaving. You're coming from, you want to do it for personal growth, and who can chastise you for wanting to grow yourself personally?
I guess anyone that doesn't like personal growth.
True.
That's who would deny you that.
That's
so
true.
It's super exciting. There's a lot of lessons to be learned here. I'd say from an employer perspective, we can't assume that you're going to stay at the company forever, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very misguided.
Young.
Yeah, they're young, they're ambitious. If you're the owner of the business, especially, no one's going to work as hard as you. You own the business, so unless you're willing to give some equity, some bonus, some more money, you're not going to be able to keep them where they are, because they want to grow and they might want your job. And so unless you're going to sell that business to them, they're going to have to go find their own thing and grow and spread their wings. And I find that think about like all the great work that we've done in just 1 year.
Yeah.
Right. So we have a phenomenal amount of success in just a short period of time. It's not about time. It's not about 10 years, 7 years. It's all about what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people that come into the business and they do 10 years of work, but they're doing really 1 year of work, but they just stretch it out over
For 10 years. Yeah.
And it's painful to watch. It's embarrassing.
It's painful to work with.
I don't know why they even show up sometimes. But that's really the conversations I am having on a coaching side of let's either coach you up or coach you out. So I'm super excited for you, Megan.
Thank you, and I appreciate you helping me, because that was the biggest thing, and so I already paid him back, everybody, with food.
And then I will have to admit that we went to this Korean barbecue place here in Houston called Jin's. Shout out for Jin's Korean barbecue, by the way.
Yes.
And I asked the server if I could have a bib, what's it called, an apron.
An apron.
And so she brought me one, and that was super helpful because last time I spilled food all over myself.
Yeah.
So kimchi stains clothes, just so you all know.
And so does Al Pastor, because I have it on my shirt right now.
She pulled a shirt. Yeah.
And I had spilt food all over me. So, that's how you know your food's good, when you you want to shovel it in your mouth so fast because it's so good that it just spills everywhere.
Yeah, or you're trying to circumvent the mouth and the esophagus and just shove it straight to your stomach.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
So I'm super excited, guys, that the Asian Sensations show is now here on Now Media. You're going to be able to get a stream. So if you're consuming us right now in a podcast format, you can actually consume us in a video format right now. We're, thanks to Juan and the team here at Now Media, we're on, I think,
we're on Facebook Live, the nowmedia.com.
Yep, nowmedia.com.
.tv.
Now Media Radio.
Now Media Radio. Yes.
NowMediaRadio.com.
And we're corrected. And then also YouTube as well. So check us out behind
iTunes.
We're on everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically, if you want to consume us in a different format, you can, because Juan and the team has hooked it up here. So we are super excited to be able to bring this podcast to you, or the show. The show. I gotta get used to that, Megan. It's so hard to kind of use
being a podcast. But if you yourself, you're a business owner, you are wanting to promote what you have to bring to the Houston market or whoever it is, the world, this is a phenomenal place to come and do that. You can, again, create shows like this, radio, or you can actually create like a digital business card, because that is the way of the future now, and it's awesome, and I've seen the work, and it's it's like a commercial, and you're gonna feel great and you're gonna look great too.
And that's where I think people can literally change their posts, right? So hey, let's cut a clip then.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. Yeah, so this is kind of what it looks like. You can see that there's a lot of different graphics in the back, so.
I think it's actually, they only hear them.
Oh.
You and I can talk and.
Oh,
it's not
we can
recording.
talk? Okay. I was like, I didn't know if you wanted us to talk. And I was like, what does this mean?
It's pretty cool. All right, so thanks again, Now Media, for letting us be here in the studio. We want to invite, so one part of the show that we want to really start kicking off, Megan,
Oh, yes.
is inviting you, anyone in the audience, entrepreneur, someone that's doing a side hustle, right? This is the gig economy. We want to bring you on the show. We want to interview you. You want to know what makes you tick, why you do what you do, what's got you excited. So we know we have some people already lined up to come in and onto the show.
Yeah, we just need
So
to
again,
schedule it.
feel free to contact us at our email address, the Asian Sensations Podcast at gmail.com. Might have to change that, Megan, but we'll keep it right now as the email. You, of course, can find us, Megan and I, on Facebook and Instagram and
Yep.
LinkedIn. Feel free to DM us there. And we are opening the show, the Asian Sensations, to all of you.
Thanks for listening.
Peace out, everybody. Still hit that microphone. Oops. Getting so excited. Okay, hopefully. Oh, there we go.
Oh, we were like.
Now Media.
4. That was a good time.
That was a good time. So how do we get this on our?